Welcome to the Armageddon TV YouTube channel. In the 8th month of the war between Ukraine and Russia, both the Kremlin and the Russian army are dragged into a great collapse vortex. Although Russia makes every effort to cover up the failure of the invasion attempt, it cannot convince anyone, especially the peoples of Russia. The Ukrainian army, which is getting stronger day by day with the support of the USA, UK and NATO, does not turn a blind eye to the Russians. The Ukrainian army is trying to thwart and disrupt Russia's efforts completely occupy the Donetsk region and hold the temporarily captured areas with hard attacks. The Ukrainian General Staff reports that the Russian army is bombing Ukrainian positions along the line of contact and conducting aerial reconnaissance. The Russian Air Force carries out attacks on civilian infrastructure and the homes of the civilian population, violating the norms of international humanitarian laws and customs of war. Despite this, the Ukrainian army continues to inflict great damage to the Russian troops. The Ukrainian army destroyed 2 Russian Ka-52 helicopters and 4 drones last day. The Ukrainian Army's Eastern Operations Command said air defense units in eastern Ukraine destroyed 2 Ka-52 helicopters, 3 Orlan-10 UAVs, and a Shahed 136 suicide drone in the past 24 hours. In addition, the Ukrainian Special Operations Unit Alpha Team destroyed another Russian Ka-52 helicopter in the Zaporizhia region. The Alpha Team, containing the most elite members of the Ukrainian Special Operations, remained in the forward positions, controlling an area of possible passage of Russian helicopters. After 3 helicopters appeared in the area they controlled, one of the Russian Ka-52s was destroyed by the successful man-pad fire of the Alpha Team. Thus, this week the Ukrainian army destroyed 3 Ka-52 helicopters belonging to the Russians. In the Russian Air Force, the Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopter entered service in 2011 as the most advanced attack helicopter. The Russian Air Force has only 140 of these special attack helicopters. In the war between Ukraine and Russia, at least 16 Russian Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopters were shot down until September. In the last 24 hours, 3 Ka-52s, and in the last 10 days, a total of 4 Russian Ka-52 helicopters were shot down. Since February 24, Russia has lost at least 20 of these special attack helicopters. Meanwhile, the previous day, Ukrainian National Guard soldiers captured an enemy Zela drone in Kharkiv region. The Russian army suffered another humiliating defeat in Ukraine, and the troops and weapons systems it could afford to lose were dwindling. In the psychological field, however, the humiliating losses in Ukraine brought the Russian forces in Ukraine to the brink of disintegration. The 300,000 mobilized reservists will not be as important as Moscow hopes. An army that has no morals, and most importantly, will not increase its morale in the future is hardly a war machine. Mobilized reservists will join troops with hateful leadership. These units will be used literally as cannon fodder regardless of their troops' chances of survival. In this respect, the modern Russia army does not resemble its predecessor, the Soviet Russian army in the Second World War. The Russian army was literally grounded after Ukrainian forces captured the town of Liman. Russian-occupied Liman has been under the siege of the Ukrainian army for the past few days, with the successful operations of the Ukrainian army in the city. Operations of the Ukrainian army continued for several days. Russian forces had the option of capitulating to the Ukrainians, but they apparently chose to attempt a desertion, and Russian troops trapped under the blockade left their positions to attempt a desertion to move into safer areas. But the desertion of the Russian army did not help, as the heroic Ukrainian army deployed the M142 HIMARS, M270 MLRS, and M777 155mm howitzer and some of their other artillery systems around the city of Liman. Therefore, when the Russian forces attempted to desert, they entered the pre-marked artillery range, thus inflicting terrible casualties. The Ukrainian General Staff shared the Russian losses between February 4 and October 3, and only in the attack that the city of Liman was taken back, 320 Russian soldiers were destroyed. Since February 24, the losses of the Russian army are 2,383 tanks, 1,007 armored personnel vehicles, 1,405 howitzers, 339 multiple rocket launchers, 177 air defense systems, 266 aircraft, 229 helicopters, 1,037 UAVs, 246 missiles, 15 warships and boats, 3,826 ammunition trucks, and 131 special equipment. In total, 60,750 Russian targets were destroyed by the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian General Staff also stated that these losses were mostly experienced in Kramatorsk and Donetsk regions. As for why the Russian forces did not evacuate Liman when they had the chance, the order from Moscow was to not let go of the defensive lines until the last man. The Kremlin hardened its stance against the war and issued an order preventing retreat or surrender. There is talk of a terrible order similar to the infamous Order No. 227, which Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin issued in the summer of 1942 to prevent what seemed to be out of control. So what is Command 227? Known as No Backing Up, it is an order given on July 28, 1942 by Joseph Stalin, who served as People's Commissar of Defense during the ongoing Great Patriotic War. Taking the order No Step Back, its slogan became the main slogan of the Soviet press in the summer of 1942. The order was written to form one of the 3 panel battalions on each front, sent to the most dangerous sections of the front lines. From 1942 to 1945, a total of 422,700 Red Army personnel were transferred to panel battalions, either civilian or due to court sentences. The order also stated that behind each battalion, units should be formed to shoot panickers and cowards. In the first 3 months, these units shot around 1,000 soldiers of the panel battalions, and a total of about 24,000 people were sent to the panel battalions. This process continued until October 1942. This order, which was issued in order to improve the morale of the Red Army, which was surrounded by the Nazis, and to emphasize patriotism, generally targeted the troops that strayed to the wrong places by the commanders and could not be applied consistently by the commanders. On October 29, 1944, the instructions contained in this order were abolished due to the changed situation before Stalin's Order 349. Liman is the last town liberated by the Ukrainian army, but continued Ukrainian counterattacks make everything certain that this will not be the last. In the statement on the illegal annexation of sovereign Ukrainian territory, published on the website of the German Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which took over the presidency of the G7, Russia created a new peak point in blatant disregard of international law by trying to annex more Ukrainian territory, and all the international communities should unite and act accordingly. They were told to say to stop. The G7 foreign ministers of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, USA, and the High Representative of the European Union unanimously agree that Russia's aggressive war against Ukraine and the receipt of Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence are possible, condemned in the strongest possible terms. The description is as follows. Putin's efforts to incorporate Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions into the territory of the Russian Federation constitute a new peak point in Russia's blatant disregard for international law, and the UN is another example of Russia's unacceptable violations of Ukraine's sovereignty. It disregards the Convention and the commonly accepted principles and commitments of the Helsinki Final Act and the Paris Charter. We will never recognize these so-called annexations and false references at gunpoint. We reaffirm that the Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions, as well as the Crimea, are integral parts of Ukraine. The ministers reiterated their call to all countries to publicly condemn Russia's war of aggression and its attempt to seize territory by force. Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said at a press conference in Washington. Especially Canada's attitude has not changed. We believe in NATO's open door policy. Canada will always support Ukraine's accession to NATO. As will be remembered, on September 30, President Volodymyr Zelensky, President of the Verkhovna Rada Ruslan Stefanchuk, and Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal signed Ukraine's application for accelerated NATO accession. On the other hand, US President Joe Biden signed a bill providing Ukraine with a new multi-billion-dollar security and economic aid package. The statement from the White House is as follows. President Biden signed the H.R. 6833 law, the Permanent Appropriations and Ukraine Supplementary Appropriations Act 2023, which provides fiscal year 2023 appropriations to federal agencies and includes additional appropriations for the ongoing projects and activities of the federal government. The signed law primarily aims to continue funding U.S. federal agencies in the absence of an approved state budget for fiscal year 2023, which begins October 1. In addition, training, equipment, weapons for the Ukrainian government, logistical support, and direct financial support are also covered by the law. Thanks for watching.